It's Children's Mental Health Week, and we're exploring the power of paying attention to what's going on inside, discovering clues from our thoughts, our feelings, and our bodies. Hello, I'm Kathryn Lovewell, author of the Inner Detective Journal, a gentle guide to help young children make sense of their inner world, especially when life feels difficult. We are shining a light on the importance of children's mental health, so every child has the opportunity to learn skills to respond to themselves kindly when things go wrong, which they inevitably will. So let's hear from one of our special guests now. So welcome to our wonderful guest for Children's Mental Health Week 2026 in the UK. Welcome, Yvonne Gabriel. Yvonne is one of my dearest friends and colleagues that we've known each other for a long time now. And I had the privilege and pleasure of training a lot of Yvonne's staff she was a former deputy head at a specialist autism school, and she has been in that role for almost 20 years. So we are very lucky to have someone that has huge experience around the importance of mental health for our children and young people. So welcome, Yvonne. Thanks for being here.
You're absolutely welcome. My pleasure.
So you've got this most extraordinary expertise and experience about supporting young people and staff in an environment where there are lots of challenges. And of course, autism, there's a huge range of autism. Can you perhaps sort of paint a picture of what that looked like in the classroom, in the school, and how why mental health is so important for children with autism and different needs?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I know I've worked with autistic children from primary age right through to sixth form for many, many years. And as you also pointed out, we know and understand that for autistic young people, for autistic people of any age, mental health often is an area of challenge for them. And so for us as staff working with our young people, we would want to support them to develop healthy mental health mental health experiences in their lives and be able to give them the tools to support them to have that healthy mental health as well. And for us, really, it's both in the classroom, in the playground, outside of school. It's about supporting young people to have the tools, to say, and the language and the communication to be able to have a healthy mental health life, really. Ask me again a more specific question. Sorry, I lost my way.
Yes, it was a broad introduction, because obviously we've got people watching that have children that may be neurodivergent, they may not. But because you have this specialist skill and expertise, I thought it would be helpful to look at what are the challenges when it comes to mental health, specifically for children and young people with autism. How is it different? Or maybe there's some specific areas that they struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for autistic young people, particularly for those young people for whom there's a level of awareness of social interaction, a level of awareness of expectation, of societal expectation, and where we see that there can be a negative impact on their mental health is where, the old to call it the adage really of trying to put a square peg into a round hole or vice versa. And that experience in terms of the feedback that you're getting from your intense social interaction, from your relationships with other people, just navigating around the world, and the feedback that you're getting in terms of that's not quite right. And not only is it not quite right, it's wrong. And there's something wrong with you because you're not fitting in with our expectations of you or your perception of the world. And you can imagine for anybody, really, if you're getting that message back continuously, that really then sends a message to your sense of self, your sense of understanding of who you are, your sense of self-worth, and the effort that it takes to try and be that person that fits into this square, that person that fits into this expectation. All of that brings about a real sort of questioning of who you are. And I think this is why a lot of autistic people, with that level of awareness and that will to want to fit in, that will to want to engage with the world, that will to want to have a meaningful place in the world, but constantly getting the feedback that there's something wrong with you because you don't fit in. And the message that sends, and the self-questioning, the self-doubt, and just with the best will in the world, not knowing how to do anything different. Because you want to be different, because you're told that your difference is not quite right. There's something not quite right with that, and you need to change or be different or appear different or behave differently in order to fit into the world, to progress in the world, to relate with people. And that's where it comes from. It's not an innate, it's not a direct correlation. Being autistic doesn't mean that you have to have a mental health need. The two are not synonymous by any means. I think it's the struggle to fit into a world that isn't always accommodating of you and your differences that then brings about negative mental health experiences. And that's not dissimilar to, it's not dissimilar to anybody, is it? I think, it's our experiences and how we process those experiences and the feedback that we get that then leads to a questioning of self, a questioning of our own abilities, misunderstanding of our emotions, and or an ability to express that when that's prolonged and we're not getting appropriate feedback or support within that, then it can become a need in that way.
Because it sounds exceptionally stressful if the constant messaging is you're not okay just as you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then what stories we make that mean about who we are and if we're good enough, not good enough. So those external judgments, you need to fit this shape and you're not fitting this shape. And if people don't understand, well, that shape doesn't suit me.
Yeah.
Especially when we're children and when we're young,
Absolutely.
we internalize that pain, internalize that judgment, which turns into pain. Making sense of those messages is very, very hard for adults, never mind children.
Absolutely. And if you don't have we're talking about building young people's resilience, building their self-love really, and being able to cope with the challenges that come their way in life. And if you've not been given the modeling of how to deal with that and to recognize actually that all my range of emotions are actually okay, and how I feel within the situation, absolutely okay. And then how do I support myself to move through that and navigate through that and be okay with myself for feeling those emotions and not being told that some emotions are good emotions and some emotions are bad emotions and you shouldn't feel this and you shouldn't feel that and you should be a particular way to fit in and to be okay. All those messages that you're getting from right from the outset are going to impact how you navigate through the world and how you navigate your own emotions in a healthy way.
Yes. And then, of course, how you access learning, how you access play in the playground, how you access friendships, how you access interacting with other people, whether they're adults or younger people. That has a huge impact if we're not comfortable in our own skin and we have this noise in our head that generates anxiety or feeling low and lacking confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. And no wonder you then turn inward, or no wonder you then stay within particular confines of how to be, what you're going to do, who you're going to be with, that brings back a more predictable feedback to you, because then it's safe. That's a safe way of being. And to venture outside of that, it takes a lot, because you don't know what the feedback is that you're going to get and whether, again, it's going to reaffirm the negative thoughts that you already have about yourself. So, you then naturally, and as a way of self-protection, withdraw in. You withdraw from those interactions. You withdraw in from the relationships because you don't quite know or trust what the feedback's going to be. So it's safer to be with yourself, to be withdrawn in that way as well.
Well, that's going to lead, obviously, to one of, I think, the deadliest elements of how we can impact our mental health, and that's isolation and loneliness, because we, as you say, we withdraw. And if we have that additional awareness and sensitivity that I'm learning and understanding comes often with autism, that it's magnified and more painful to try and navigate anything outside of that safe zone. Isolation, keeping ourselves separate, but then of course that isolation leads to loneliness, which is going to generate a lot of, I think, difficult challenges when it comes to our mental health, that there'll
Yeah.
be a lot more potentially all of that rumination that can go on because you are
Mhm.
on your own than of others, and all those things. So,
So as you said, the rumination is a really key thing that you've mentioned there as well, because the neurotypical person can really, really ruminate and get stuck. But the autistic person, for whom there is that, that perhaps rigidity anyway, really being able to move on from a situation is increased. And if you've not got the language, the communication, the relationships with others to support you to do that, then you really can, that autistic person really can get quite stuck, and left with their own thoughts that will just ruminate, and make it harder still to be able to move on.
and it just sounds really painful. I know I've had my struggles, and theoretically I'm neurotypical in this moment in time, as I understand how my brain functions and receives the messages of the world. And I found it difficult growing up with enough of that sort of sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, implicit, explicit messaging about who I should show up as, how I should be as a normal person, or as a good girl, or a good student, or all of that compliance. And it's very, very, it's a lot to navigate as a child, never mind if they've got a different perspective, a different lens to that they experience their world because of their autism. So what are
that's where the autistic community really comes into play as well. And one of the advantages, I mean, there are pros and cons to the specialist school set up in that way. But one of the pros is that the autistic children can see themselves reflected back in other young people and other people in the community, and whether they are autistic themselves or whether it's the neurotypical staff that are supporting them, there's an understanding of. And so when there's that attempt to communicate and express what's going on for them, if they've got that language, and how we can support to give that language, whether it's verbal or other, that that recognition of, oh my gosh, somebody else gets this. It's not just me. And I feel safe enough to be able to express how I feel, what I'm struggling with, what's working, what's not working within this community, and how we can then support them to take that outside of the community, and how we can then support the wider community in their understanding. And I'm so, so happy that in my years of working with autistic kids and the autistic community, how much more understanding there is beyond that in the wider society. And that recognition of something needs to shift here, and it's not these individuals. It's us as a community, because we are the ones that are impacting on their mental health. We are the ones, excuse me, that are missing out on all that these individuals are able to contribute to society, because we have been too rigid in our way of thinking. So one of my joys really is looking back and seeing how things have changed. We've got some way to go yet, but there is definitely change in the wind, really, isn't there, of understanding. And then hopefully that will be rewarded by seeing less negative mental health needs and impacts for those individuals as well. So I think we're on the right track.
Yes, I agree. Things are changing, and it's slow.
Yeah, that's what you're doing as well. I mean, wow.
Yes.
It's had a look through the journal earlier today. I wrote some notes down in terms of, my thoughts about mental health for young people and autistic young people, and then open the journal. And I'm like, yes, oh my God, yes.
So this is the journal. This is the journal. Do a quick plug. This is the journal that Yvonne's talking about. What I'm understanding more and more is it doesn't matter what age you are, and it doesn't matter whether you're neurodiverse, neurotypical, this core need to be kind to ourselves when things are difficult. And can we embody that? And what I've loved about one of the things you mentioned about that shared humanity, when a child or a young person can see themselves, they see that they belong, they see that, oh yes, me too. And we all need that. We need to recognize that we're not alone, even when we feel like we're the only person in the world that's struggling in this way.
Recognizing that when, sometimes before it tips over into a real, definite mental health need, actually, just how you're feeling is quite valid. And that whole the good emotions and feelings, and the bad emotions and feelings. But actually, if I'm feeling really down because I've had a negative life experience, or I'm feeling really sad, or I'm feeling really angry or frustrated, and all those big emotions, actually, that's fine. That works. Yeah, it's just as valid as feeling happy and and everything else, and the positive emotions, as it were. But if you're feeling shame over those feelings, or that you can't express them to somebody else because that doesn't make you a good girl or a good boy, then we don't necessarily embrace those feelings, and then it can potentially tip over into, oh, now these are now consuming me. I don't know how to move beyond this. I don't have the tools to move beyond this. I can't talk to somebody else. And then it starts to impact your behavior, relationships, your participation. So I think from the outset, the work that the journal and the book and all the materials that you have around recognizing your feelings, being able to label them, knowing what it feels like, and then the tools that you've got to be able to, okay, how do I support myself and to regulate that and be able to move on from the outset.
Yes. And it's a life skill. This is my big message. It's like, yes, of course, we're talking about children's mental health in Children's Mental Health Week. All the people that are likely to be watching this, we were all children once.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get these skills. I didn't get these skills. I had to wait till I was 45 to actually really understand that I can respond to myself kindly as I would, my dear friend. I would look after them.
And as you said, we're all there. We get to adulthood and we realise that. But the majority of us as adults, we're about 7 years old, aren't we, really? We're kind of stuck there in many respects as well. Often because we didn't get that, what we're offering now as children. And so we are emotionally stuck in that place, in grown bodies.
Yes, we're wearing the grown-up clothes.
Life is actually, it's so important across the board, isn't it? It really is, in your age.
And with the Booster Way, we are, one of our strap lines is, it's not just for kids. It's not. We want to support the child and the adult caring for that child, whether they're in school, whether they're in the home environment, whether they're in a cared for environment. Everyone needs this. And of course, we want the grown-ups, the adults to model this. But if they've not ever learned it, actually, they can learn it together with something like the Inner Detective Journal. They can, start to develop this language that supports themselves as well as the children that they love and care for.
Absolutely.
It's so interesting, isn't it? And we need to have this, I think, this lovely shift, which I agree is starting to happen, where there isn't this delineation of good behavior, good feelings and bad. This good and bad things, I think, really, really unhelpful.
Absolutely.
I was that child that I didn't touch anger ever.
Yeah.
Because
and
that's
fearful of it as well, then, don't you?
Very much.
If your representation of anger is always somebody who's out of control and then is shunned by everybody else and is trying to suppress that, then why would you want to go there? Why would you want to have
too
that
scary?
Story? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And going back to your comment about safety, I think it's absolutely fundamental. The key to our mental health is, do we feel safe? And I work with a lot of adults, and our first step, is, well, the environment we are in together now, this is a safe environment. How can it be safe for you? How can you feel safe in this environment? And what will start to inquire, what does make you feel safe?
And that's the key thing. It's the inquiry, isn't it? It's being curious about what is it that works for that individual.
Yes.
Because we can make an assumption about what is a safe space and what people need. But, and then oftentimes we're making that assumption with our neurotypical head on. We have no idea of what that actually looks like and feels like for that individual. And we can, again, there's practice, we identify what's good practice or good autism practice in that sense, in terms of making spaces accessible, safe, etc. But even within that, there's the individual. So it's, what's working for you, what doesn't work for you, and how do I give you the communication skills to be able to successfully communicate that.
Yes.
And when it works well. And when it doesn't work, okay, let's revisit. Let's come back to that. You're not wrong, because you're as an individual, you're finding out about yourself. What you think might be what you need, and then when we put that into practice, it's like, oh no, that's not working.
Yes.
Okay, let's recoup. Let's come back again, and you are okay within that, and you're okay to not know. And you're okay to experiment with that as well in a space that we can create for you.
Yes.
The communication is, and the tools of communication are just so key, absolutely key.
Yes. And what I've been working towards, and I'm hoping the Inner Detective Journal will help as well with any adult working with a child, is that they have the shared language that suits the child. That this is the feedback we've had from some parents saying, "Oh, we're not using the grown-up speak, we're not using the EQ special language.
Yeah.
We are hearing from our children the way they can speak and the way they," and then together there's that unifying language that then both parties can actually have meaningful exchange and support that development of how to help a child feel good about themselves no matter what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's the key thing, isn't it? It's the fundamental, it's feeling good about themselves and to take the, you know, the knocks and the downs and the mistakes and be able to still feel good about yourself and recognize it as being an opportunity for learning, really, and bounce back from it. You know, so yeah.
There's so much to talk about. I want to talk to you forever, and I know we've gone over time of our 15 minutes already, but there's so much richness, so much gold in this conversation. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences and wisdom. To close, maybe could you offer, you know, what advice, guidance would you offer maybe a parent or carer that was supporting a child with autism, wanting to help them ensure that their mental health is strong and that they have that resilience? What guidance, advice would you give? Maybe if a child was struggling, or a preventative thing, maybe both. Sorry, I've thrown too many questions there again.
I think, you know, as we probably just ended on, in terms of creating that safe space, you know, right from the outset, ensuring that young person is getting feedback from you that they are okay, that they are enough, that they're good enough, and from the, you know, creating that environment that supports that, giving them the communication tools in whatever form works for that young person as well, and doing that general checking in with them, you know, not in an obvious way, but just kind of talking about your feelings, maybe, showing that you have that you are aware of your own feelings and how you maybe deal with things, both the positive and the not so positive. And so you're modeling that with them. You're giving them that opportunity to share and really listen, you know, whether that's through play, whether that's through journaling, whether that's through some of these more structured tools like social stories or comic book strips in that way, but finding a medium for being able to communicate about what's happening in their world and identifying how it feels for them, and then being able to give those tools to be able to support them with that. Just on an everyday, you know, sometimes if the worst thing often is the feeling of being out of control or not having control and not having agency. So just in your general interactions and your setup, whether it's in a school situation or home, offering those opportunities for choice. You know, would you like to do A or B? Would you like to do this first or that first? Or, you know, it's all these elements of choice that they feel they've got some element of control, because it's often feeling out of control that can lead to those elements of self-questioning and self-doubting as well. So I think, yeah, those sort of things, both as a preventative, and then to really see your child, see, you know, what's different, what's coming up as different for them, because it's often those shifts in presentation. It's not, you know, no child is born with low self-esteem. No child is born with self-questioning and negative thoughts. So at some point in their lives, they would have been happy being themselves and exploring the world and navigating it and being who they are with richness within it. And then slowly but surely, the messages that are coming through and coming back to them is leading to the sense of self-questioning. And if you're autistic, you've got a lot of questioning going on if you've got that level of awareness. So when within that, if we start to see some shifts and changes in that young person's demeanor, be aware of that, you know, tune into them, and know then that maybe that's a time to start do some additional work with them around that, but really tune into any changes that you observe in them in that way, things that they're trying to communicate, and how they're trying to communicate that to you.
Looking for clues.
Absolutely.
Do you see what I did there?
Yeah, I see exactly.
Oh,
and it's looking with your eyes, looking with your ears, looking with your hearts, looking with, you know, with all of your own senses as well.
yeah, that whole energy. Yes, I agree. Their whole self. Just
Absolutely.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Yvonne. I'm sad to
You're
close
so
this
welcome.
conversation. It's been really enlightening, and I know that
You're
everything
very,
you've
very well.
shared.
I'm just so pleased and happy to see the work that you're doing. And I know that it's going to be impactful for so many young people, adults and families and communities, because these are the young people that are growing up to be our community, right? These are the people that are growing up to be the leaders and the contributors to their societies. We support them now. That's an investment in them as individuals, but that's an investment for our whole societies. Yeah, this is good, powerful stuff.
Thank you for being part of Children's Mental Health Week. I really appreciate your time.
You're very, very welcome.
Have you found this curious conversation helpful? The Inner Detective Journal might be just what you need. It's a gentle, powerful way to help young children build lifelong coping skills with kindness from within. Click the link to get your copy for your child, your class, maybe your entire organization if they've got children, so you can help them through the tough times. Let's keep listening and keep supporting children's mental health together.